Good morning, everybody. I'm Marcia O'Connor. I am CEO and founder of the O'Connor Group. We are an outsourced HR and recruiting company based out of King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and looking forward to hearing more about all of you and answering questions today.
Bernie?
Good morning, Bernie Orglmeister from Skyview Tech. I do IT and security solutions, provide IT and cybersecurity for mostly SMBs in the Tri-County area.
Morris?
Yankell. The company is called HR Computes, and the name says it all, and then no one ever understands. HR, that does not compute. So we do human resources, finance, technology, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and kind of project management. The t-shirt says we make technology work for human resources and finance.
Okay. I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves also. This is a small group. This is also not a shy group. It will be a panel discussion with the three speakers, but we want your questions. We want interaction. Okay. And I know I don't have to say it twice because you guys will do that. So I'll start first. Amy Anderson, Price Turner CFOs. We provide outsourced accounting to small and medium-sized businesses. And Jess, I think you did your introduction. And for those who came late, Jess is new to the Alta team and is working with Zoe. So you will start seeing emails from her and working with her directly. Dawn, you want to introduce yourself? And also, besides your name, your company, what are you trying to get out of today?
Okay. Dawn Flickcraft, and I was a GP-SEG member years ago, Beacon member, really getting active again. I have started my own professional services LLC, FLC Advisory and Consulting, focusing on helping life science companies, empowering them as they go through change, specifically focused on successful integration post merger and acquisition. Today, I'm just looking for, obviously, with starting my own consulting company, what the future may bring, and things I need to think about.
Great. Jeffrey?
John Francesco, Vancer Group. We are a strategic advisory firm that focuses on life science and healthcare companies. We help companies, primarily working with the CEO, C-suite, and the board of members to formulate ideas, execute those ideas, and when they're being challenged, help them realign organizationally.
Okay, thank you. And what you want to get out of here?
Right. Always best practices, and share best practices that I may be able to pass on, as well as listen and learn.
Great. Mark?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Mark Stile. I am a business therapist and coach. I help small business owners get unstuck and achieve sustainable breakthrough performance, industry agnostic, and I focus on the very small businesses from solopreneur to 100 people. I'm looking to learn a few things and potentially add them to my repertoire of processes and strategies to certain clients of mine. Thanks.
Great. Carl?
Hey, good morning, Carl Berger, Fractal Sales. I'm a fractional sales executive, helping business to grow, salespeople to outperform, and business owners to chillax and enjoy the ride. I'm here, work with a lot of clients looking to grow and scale and move to some sort of a transaction, just lessons learned and things that we can help guide them and coach them as they're going through that process as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Chase?
Hey, good morning. I'm Chase Pickering. I help executives find their first clients instead of their next job when they're ready to transition. So after having my own corporate executive experience in the life science area and going over into the live events industries, I broke off in 2016, scaled my own multi-six-figure business, and now I help people do the same thing. People that still have a lot of gas in the tank and aren't ready to hang it up yet. Nice to meet you all.
Great. And what you want to get out of today?
Well, since I work so far on the left side of that law of diffusion of innovation curve, I like to see what's next for the people that I work with. And I like to collect those best practices and kind of distill them into better ways forward myself. That way I'm that much more effective whenever I give back. So thank you so much for putting this presentation together today.
Okay. Hopefully we can get your expectations met on this, so. Allison.
Hi, Allison Christopherson. My company is Rethink Innovations. We do commercial AV, which basically is when someone's moving into a new office, we would go in and fit out their conference rooms or sound masking, security, stuff like that. What I'm looking to get out of today is pretty much just learning more, especially from Marcia, since she's like a mentor for me. But everybody, can teach each other something. So I'm always looking to learn more.
That's great. Michael.
So proud I was able to find the demute. Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to see you. Some new faces for me. I do ESOPs as an exit strategy. So if anybody, it seems a few other people do help executives figure out how to sell their companies. So small, mid-size transactions in the 3 to 20 million is our core, but 5 to 50 is really where we operate on ESOPs. And I want to today, I've been looking at joining boards of directors, and I've joined a startup, and I want to just get some good thinking into my head as I look forward to helping this business get settled and grow, since it has the potential to grow very quickly and very large.
Great. I love that you're going to get some practical information here that you'll be able to utilize. That's great. Bob.
I'm trying to figure out how to unmute. Had some technical issues going at the beginning. Bob Cahill from Strategic Exit Advisors. We help entrepreneurs sell their businesses, operate in the lower middle market. And I am always interested in hearing the current thought process on companies scaling, because quite frankly, it's a lot easier to sell a company that's growing than one that's not.
Very, very true. Thank you. Marla.
Good morning, all. I'm Marla Mosser with MBM Coaching and Consulting. I'm an executive coach, and I work with leaders at all organizational levels, senior leaders, emerging leaders, new leaders, helping them drive their success and their career satisfaction. I love the term industry agnostic. I would say that certainly holds true for my business. And I work with lots of different leaders and executives on lots of different issues. A common theme is once leaders are promoted progressively upwards, they need to learn to promote themselves and lead at the right level. In terms of what I hope to get out of it, I think most of it's been said. I'm looking for best practices. I look to scale my own business, and many times work with business owners and leaders of that small to medium-sized business who's looking to do the same. So thanks.
Thank you. Marcia. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Mojda Keika, and I'm with the Women's Resource Center. We serve women and girls, mostly to help them with difficult life transitions in the southeastern Pennsylvania region. And I'm here because the Women's Resource Center is looking to scale up, especially one of our programs focused on girls leadership. So I'm looking forward to that. And I am a Marcia fan along with Allison.
Well, welcome. And Women Resource Center is located right in the center of Wayne.
That's right. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I've been working with it for many years.
Wonderful.
Georgianne.
Good morning, Georgine Warzinski, Start Business Alliance. I also work with small businesses, but a lot smaller than most of what everybody's talking about, medium, usually 20 million top line revenues and below. It's usually when the current owner wants to bring in and do a merger, a non-cash merger with a smaller, younger business and do the earn out over time. And I help structure that and do the integration. And I'm just looking forward to learning because I work with small businesses and I am a small business. So thank you for putting this together.
Thank you. Tom.
Hey, everyone. Tom Coy at Birch Benefits. Work with mid-size companies in the middle market on their benefits consulting, help them stay compliant, save money, and keep their employees, both current and future, happy. I'm here to learn, and you can add me to that Marcia fan list.
I'm gonna go broke. Jeez.
That's awesome. Janine.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sure I will be a Marcia fan by the time this is over. My name is Janine Scaff. I am a consultant to small and mid-sized nonprofits, mostly on development and fundraising issues, but also board effectiveness. I'm a sole practitioner, and so I don't really want to scale too big, but I'm always thinking about my own effectiveness and also and efficiency. And also nonprofits are always talking about scaling. So I'm sure there's something, they're always trying to figure out, can we serve more? Do we need to serve less? And if we need to cut back, how are we, there's just always budgetary and scale issues that you end up talking about. So that's it. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. Think I got everybody? Oh, yeah. Michael, we did see that in the news. Pay $20 and anyway, okay. So if you have any questions, do put them in the chat or raise your hand. All right, this is, as I said, this is a small group. So one of the first questions that I have is for Marcia, which was when you started your company, which was, I think, like 15 years ago. What was your vision when you started the company? Were you always going to be, we've got a lot of solo entrepreneurs here. Was it always going to be that, or did you have a bigger idea at the time?
A great question. So I started in 2017. No, 16. Duh. It'll be 16 years old September 1st. And so when I started it, I wanted to have a team of people. I always wanted to have a team. And I knew that. And I had started with a group called, with Vistage, but to be honest with you, it's called TLA, the Trusted Advisor Group. And there were a lot of solo entrepreneurs in there with me. And a lot of people make that decision to be a solo entrepreneur, and that is great. It's a lifestyle. People like it and they want to do their own thing. Don't want to deal with the other pieces involved. I totally agree with that. I just always wanted to have a team. I was an RA in college. I was always in charge of things or being president of things. I always felt like I was like the big umbrella. Want to have everybody underneath and take good care of them. So I didn't think I'd be as large as I am today. I thought I would be maybe 10, 15 people. What I realized very quickly is that the people, if you really want to grow and keep good people who really want to learn and grow and hypos, they're always looking for that next step. And so then I basically, after about 7 years, I made a decision. I'm like, I can't just keep what I have because my clients are getting bigger and wanting more expertise. I need to go bigger. And so I took the initiative of saying, I need to get larger. Now, never in a million years thought I'd get to 80 people. But, we did hit 80 people and we grew super fast right after COVID. But COVID actually was really, it sucked overall in the world. Let's all admit that right now. But in regards to the HR consulting, it just blew up and it made HR cool, basically. And because HR wasn't cool at the table anymore, now it's cool at the table because they all went to HR during COVID to say, what do we do? How do we do this? How do we take care of our people? So now all of a sudden that happened. So now we grew very, very fast, and growing fast is also very different than growing slowly. And so I'll talk about all that in a second, but I don't want to eat up all the time here. But no, I did not expect it. I thought I'd be 10 people. But I do believe having where I want to go, I knew I need to grow where I'm at, but you always have to take people. My high post now are saying, hey, what's next for me? And I'm like, okay, I have 80 positions. So somebody leaves, there's a role open, but nobody's leaving. So it's always figuring out, do you acquire? Do you basically merge? Do you do these different things to hit the next number to keep your high post?
Yep. And that's a hard thing, is when do you take that step? As you said, you got to about 10 people or so, and it's one of those, you don't want people to leave.
No.
You want your good people to stay. So to your point, and again, this part of HR is how do you continue to keep them happy, which is probably going to be, you've got to get them to that next level, and to get to that, and it's a hierarchy. You know, it's a pyramid. You're at the top with other people, and those numbers in the middle are less than the numbers at the bottom. So you got to grow enough to have enough open positions for people. So, but that's good. I really like the fact that you had that vision from the beginning. Bernie, with your company, did you have that vision as well?
Not right from the beginning. Started out as a consultant, IT consultant. You know, myself, I've been in IT all my life. I was CIO at a large law firm in Philly, and just tired of attorneys, and went out on my own. And as it grew, we had to hire people to take care of the work, and so we did not have that right from the beginning. One thing I wanted to add to Marcia's thing is, in our business, at least, we always talk about there's always something better for people. So it doesn't matter how much you want to keep everybody, they're always going to find someone's going to pay them a little more, or something, or closer to home or something. So in our job, we're always trying to hire people that we can train and teach them the skills, knowing that eventually they're going to leave. Because if you keep those people forever in your company, their salary is going to go up. So at some point, your gross margin is going to take a dive, because you're paying all those people that you could hire somebody newer and train them. So it's assumed in our industry that we're going to have some churn, and always hiring and training people to bring up, because that's just part of life. Obviously, you want to keep the good people, but you know, it could affect your bottom line at the end.
So you bring up as a finance person, you brought up the money part of it. So that's near and dear to my own heart. A question for you is related to employees versus contractors. Many of us here are solo entrepreneurs. You need somebody as a first helper. I just call it that, because it's not necessarily an employee that you first hire. So question for the two of you, and Morris, I'll still get to you, don't worry. Who was your first hire, i.e. was it an employee or a contractor, and why? Bernie, you were still talking, so I'll let you answer that one.
We hired an employee because I was getting too busy to do work in the business and on the business. So I needed somebody to take on some of those responsibilities. So it was a big decision. And to this day, it's still always, there's always the weight on my shoulder, because are my employees doing it as well as I would have done it, right? So that's always a big challenge of letting go and trusting people. But yeah, it was somebody to take on my immediate technical role, so I can focus more strategically on the business.
Marcia, what about you?
Yeah, so my first people that I would hire were 1099 consultants. I had an agreement though. So it started in 2007. Oh God, it was 2007. Why am I saying that's 16? 2007. So it's not enough coffee, guys. But 2007, and that's when the Great Recession hit. A year later, the Great Recession hit. A lot of people basically, had lost their jobs. And so a lot of times when my contracts were signed with my clients, they didn't pay me for almost 3 months. I didn't have the extra cash to pay these people yet. So I literally put in the clause of the agreements that I couldn't pay them until I actually got paid. And back then people, needed money. So they trusted me, and they said, okay. And I did. As soon as I paid them, and I paid, you pay them a check, and to make sure that they're paying their taxes and all too. And it's a lot of faith, but you don't know what you don't know. I was borrowing contracts from people. My little office was in Quarter Bakery and King of Prussia, and it was just That's what you did. I didn't hire my first full-time employee until 3 years in. Now, here's a person who basically worked for a colleague of mine that used to work for me, whom if I could clone this person, I would in a heartbeat. And she was so good. And she's like, I know how you work. I know what you need. You need to talk to Janice. Now, Janice at the time was in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay. And had a full-time job, full benefits, basically having her first child, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, hey, how are you? We talked. There was no Zoom back then. It was basically all on the phone, and we're all talking. And I just said, if my friend Jen says you should hire her, she knows her stuff and what she's doing. I hired her. I didn't meet her for a full year, guys, face to face, because I didn't have the money to take the plane to go out and visit her. So this was all by sure. She was trusting me through Jen. I was trusting her through Jen. She came aboard. We talked every day for an hour. And listen, I told her too, I said, I have zero benefits. I don't have 401k. I can give you time off. And I could said, we'll have great conversations and all, but that's all I got. And she said, nope, I believe in you and I trust in you. And she's still with me to this day. And she's out in Nevada, but now she has 2 kids and they're teenagers, and it really has worked well with her life because her husband's a lawyer. And it just has worked. But it was a major, my God, I almost had a heart attack, because here's somebody quitting their full-time job to take a job with me. And here I am, they're relying on me to pay for that. I had panic attacks. I mean, I literally 3 o'clock in the morning, I would wake up and I was like, why is my heart pounding so hard? And then I realized, talking to other people, I'm like, holy crap, that's a panic attack. And because I'm a big person to take care of my people. And so it was just really alarming. And then, guys, people don't always pay on time, as you know this, and an economy sucks. People are like, I'll pay her a little bit later. And so that was really difficult for me too. And I literally would use I would watch The Secret 100 times. I listened in my car, the CDs. I'm like, okay, positive thinking. I'm going to get 4 checks today. I need 4 checks today. Did you know I come home, I would get 4 checks in the mail. And I was like, thank you. And I had to pay them. And that's how it was back then, because in 2008, 2009 was really a tough time, not just for independent companies, but for the solo entrepreneurs and all. It was a rough time, but we got through it. Here we are, we're 2023. You know what I mean? You're going to have your ups and downs, but hiring people was really difficult. But then when you start hiring them first, you're like, I got this. It's all working. I'm still paying her. This is cool. And then basically you hire your second person and your next person. And now I don't even really think about it. I just do the math and I work with my finance team. Like, can I afford her, or him? And now it's a little easier. But when you first start, it's nerve-wracking. It really is.
Morris, with your first hires, and I also want you to answer that question, but then also, what was the first system that you put in on your own company, not somebody else's, but in your own company? So 2 questions for you.
So I think both Bernie and Marcia are, if you don't have the pipeline full, then how do you hire? And so for us, what has always happened is when the pipeline is full and you're overly busy, you're constantly striving and looking for who can you bring in, at least in a short term. And so for us, it's generally been 1099, contract support. The catch-22 is that they're 1099 for you and they're 1090-10 for somebody else. So, or they've got their own business and they're basically, doing some things for you, but they're also looking for their own clients. So invariably, as your project sort of, dips and valleys or heights and valleys, you're going to lose them. And so you find somebody who's great and you can't hang on to them, or, the project changes or whatever. And it's, I think that's tough. To me, I think it also depends on whether or not your projects or the things that you're consulting on, if you call it either a large project or, a small project. So for us, a lot of times we get involved in something that very quickly becomes a full-time engagement, or more than full-time for one person. They need more than 40 hours a week. They don't need 10 hours a week. And so then you're constantly trying to figure out, how do you do that 40 or 60 hours, either individually or, with your contractors, where now everybody's doing 40 or 60 hours. How do you figure out where's your next client? How do you figure out, to keep that pipeline full? I think that's the struggle that a lot of us, the thing that a lot of us are struggling with. So as for the first system that we implemented was payroll. We're not doing payroll through an accountant. I mean, you certainly can, and Amy Anderson's firm is the one that I would choose. But you can get a payroll firm to support, and as Marcia said, any of the taxes, any of the situation, that kind of thing, is just way easier for a low-cost provider who can do that kind of work. I think the other one, there you go, Zoe. That's a great one. Prime point for payroll. Sometimes the struggle though with a payroll vendor is, will they do it for 2 or 3 employees? When you're real small. So, but you can certainly find them. And Jerry he probably would help you if you haven't. So the other piece to me, systems wise, and we've struggled with this many times, is that sort of marketing system. And I don't know that it needs to be a full blown kind of CRM, but the idea that you're only as good as your next email or next post on social media, or Marcia's got a great newsletter. So does HR Computes. I don't know if anyone's, but that newsletter, that idea that you've got to stay kind of top of mind. And there are a ton of systems out there, and they'll cost a lot of money. And we've tried many of them over time. I think that's an area where the small firm can always do a better job. And maybe it's, hook up with a marketing firm. Maybe it's going with, we've had some success with that. Certainly take it off the plate of the people who are writing the newsletter, or take it off the plate of the people who are maintaining the contact list. But I think that's an area where all of us could probably use advice on what's the best, cheapest, for a really pinpointed, if you start thinking about CRM, and now it's a relationship management system, and we're not talking about that. How many, to me, it's the other side of the coin. How do I stay top of mind? How do I try and do some of those kinds of things?
Okay, thank you for a couple of things. Payroll, definitely get a payroll system. As finance, we don't calculate payroll ourselves either, Morris. We use an outside system for every one of our clients, because that's the biggest area of getting in trouble. And make sure it's reputable and not the neighbor around the corner from you. There was a case in New York City that the payroll company absconded with, I think it was like $50 million. They never paid the federal or the state taxes to the IRS. And there's that little clause in there saying it is the company's responsibility. So all the companies were on the hook, not the payroll company. So keep that in mind. And there are ways, if you don't know how, there are ways to check that those payments are being made on your behalf. So that's something about payroll. I'm also going to put up another system that you should have when you're scaling, or actually as a small business, is an accounting system. You've got to have an accounting system. And I don't care if it's a piece of paper, if it's looking at your bank rec, if it is a Excel spreadsheet. When you're ready, move on to something a little bit more. QuickBooks Online. You can move into when you're getting larger. Morris and I are actually working on a company that went from Sage and now putting in NetSuite. They're a very large multinational company. They need something that big. If you need an Oracle and SAP, let us know. But those are really big systems. You don't necessarily need those until you are multi-million-dollar client companies. But in the meanwhile, you've got to do accounting. You've got to do your taxes. No, I do not prepare taxes. I do not prepare my own taxes, but I can give you names of people. Make sure it is done. I just talked to a nonprofit. I know we've got a couple of nonprofit people here on the call. Make sure your 990s are completed, because one of my contacts just is on the board. He was doing what he thought was the right thing, and he was keeping track of the finances, never knew he had to do a 990, and 990 has not been filed because the tax person that they used to have, hello Kat behind Mark's file, actually passed away last year. and their people did not go through and tell the clients that they passed away and this, that, and the other thing. He's now on the hook because that had to be filed last year in 2022. And anyway, so he's on the hook for that. So we're working with him. So the point is that get your financial systems in place. If you need a marketing, and go back to our Zoe, we had trying to remember the two people we had for branding and marketing, talking about those ways to do it, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's to be that top of mind, Morris, because you're right. Scaling, the only way you're going to scale is if you get more clients. And when you get more clients, then you bring in the people that you have. You may not have the money up front, to Marcia's perspective. That's extremely important also from a finance perspective. Make sure you're working with banks to get a loan, or if you're your own company, make sure you have the money set aside so that you can invest in yourself and lend yourself money and pay it back once you have some profits.
So Amy, you raise a great point, and I'm just going to ask the question to Marcia, but is that the way that you do it? Is that you wait? Well, not anymore, I guess, but do you get the clients first and then hire the people, or do you hire the people with the confidence that you're going to get the clients?
It's like chicken and the egg, Morris. I think it's a fine line. What I do, and I tell my clients now, is they'll have a bench, even in the good times and in bad times, because I don't know, at COVID, all of a sudden, like certain things started to turn on really fast, and you need to be prepared. A lot of people let go of a lot of people, probably a little too quickly, and then it was really hard for them to ramp back up again. And so I always tell people have a bench. Now, listen, I'm a numbers girl as well. I'm a former accountant. To me, it's more along the lines of just have that bench ready. And I know there's a time frame because most people are employed full time, so you need at least 2 weeks time frame in there, and another week for training. And so you have to really, I try to basically tell the client, I'm like, this is great timing. We're just a little busy, but next month, we'll basically be able to do that. Meaning tomorrow, make that phone call, make that hire, get them on board, get it going, and I try to tell people when they come on board, like, listen, if you cannot say you just started with us, that'd be great. Because they want to see this person's been with you for a long time. I mean, some of the things I made up, and my husband's always like, so basically you lied. I said, no. I said, it wasn't a lie. It was like a little fib. And I said, but it was a fib that was an honest white one, not a black one. And you had to do what you had to do. When I first started, my office literally was corner bakery. People knew me like, is this your office? I'm like, pretty much. And then I would put on my address, since I lived in King of Prussia as well, Suite 100. He's like, why are you putting Suite 100 all these things? I said, because it's King of Prussia. So people think I have an office. People have to think that you're bigger than you are. And that's what I had to do. That I would tell people, I realized every time I would say I'm working on this, like, well, how come you're not working on my project exclusively? I'm like, because you're not paying all my bills, but you can't tell them that. And so I made up the thing of saying, well, my team will basically work on that for you. And my husband, like, he'd ask me, like, so how'd your day go? And I'd be just like, well, I had to tell him I had a team. He's like, who's your team? I said, me, myself, and I. And they don't even know that. I said, we made it up throughout the years. And then basically, you're right, Morris, those times, those hard years, I couldn't pay, but every time I made any money, I put it back into the company. So I made sure I had reserves, and I put it back and I put it back, and I bootstrapped it. I didn't take the loans, and I used, my own money, and never told my husband I took money out of the 401k during 2009 because, I had to pay my people, and it wasn't fair to them. And so, I told him 5 years later, but I was honest, but it just, you have to do what you got to do. And I was like, my motto as it is today is failure was not an option. And that really kept me going. And I made sure I hung around people who were like my little tribe, and those tribes of other people trying to make it as well. You need to have those people who understand what being an entrepreneur is all about, because I love my husband. He's great. He has no clue about being an entrepreneur. Okay, I love my best friends. They're nurses. Not happening. So you need to have your people around you that you trust, that you can open up to the good times and the bad times, because there's going to be great days and there's going to be not so great days. And so those are the things that I had learned quite a bit when I started up.
You raise a number of good points. And we, again, have a number of coaches on this call and within Beacon. Having that support group is extremely important because you, like you said, you can ask yourself, you can ask you, you're yourself and I, and you're gonna get the same answers. So you gotta ask people who will give you different perspectives, and also those who will give you the hard truth. To your point, it's like, I'll tell people, yeah, a bank is not gonna loan you money just to start a business. Because if it's a professional services business, you have no asset. So why, and we don't have any bankers on the call today, but a bank isn't going to do that. So as you're scaling the business, remember, you've got to invest money into the business. To Marcia's point, you're not always going to get paid by the client, but if you have people on payroll, you have to pay them. If you have a monthly payroll, you got to make those monthly payroll, and you got to pay the taxes. Also, the taxes have a due date as well. In California, if somebody leaves, you have to pay that last paycheck within 3 days of their last date. Marcia knows this better than I do, but that money has to go to the employees. Marcia, you were really smart in having your contractors set up where they got paid when you got paid. And that is a way you can do it with 1099 people. You cannot do that, however, with employees. They have to be paid. Marcia can talk at length about all of those rules. But again, and that's one of those things, when you're scaling your business, you've got, do I hire? First of all, it's a question, do I have enough work? And how much work are you doing versus doing in the business and on your clients? And do you have the time? There are many consultants who they work on a project, they'll just be on that one project, that will end, and now they have to go, to Morris's point, get that next pipeline. And you've got a lull in there. How do you make your business so you don't have those lulls? And the best way is when you have people to do the work, and then you're out there as a business owner, you're the face of the company doing the business development. You bring on more people, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marcia, Bernie, and Morris, but you did more of the business development as well as a consultant, but you were also the face of the business, bringing in those pipeline, working on that pipeline.
I think, can I ask, I think the part of that challenge of getting employees, and whether they're 1099 or full-time employees, is that I have found that a lot of times the easiest way to get business is to be working with a client on a regular basis and keep your eyes open. And now you see a secondary project, or there's something else that you could help with. You start to establish that relationship with the people in that organization. And now you kind of go, well, you know what? You could really use some help on, not use some help. You have some really good challenges over there in the recruiting function, or in that applicant tracking system, or whatever, salary planning, or whatever it is. Accounts receivable, purchase orders, now that I'm breaking into that business, which is, I never wanted. Anyway, you see other opportunities. Exactly. You see these other opportunities. And I think that's something where even a 1099 or your employee has to sort of put that kind of a hat on, because that's how you're going to expand. Now, that takes a lot of trust on your part, or a good ironclad legal agreement that, they can't sort of see, oh, there's another project here. And instead of bringing that to HR Computes or the O'Connor Group, I'm going to just go out on my own and I'm going to do that project. So, and 1099 is a lot easier for them to do that. But I think that's something where, yeah, you can wear the hat. You can go out and do talks at conferences. You can write the articles, but you need help in order to expand that. So when did you get, Marcia, I feel like we're all quizzing Marcia. We're all going to have to get the t-shirts that say, when did you get your first salesperson? Or do you have hardcore sales folks?
You know what? My true salesperson that I have now is my VP of sales. I brought her on board as sales and marketing manager in 2016. And ironically enough, she had zero sales experience, but she was a natural. And I took her under my wings. I'm like, you're a natural. You need to believe me on this. and you're going to do great. And so we taught her that, and now she's my VP of sales and marketing. And she's one of those people that I can give her anything and she just does it and moves it. And sometimes I just take a chance on people. When I see talent in somebody, I'm like, I see that. I'm gonna bring you doing this, and we're gonna show you how to do this because I think you're gonna do phenomenal in. And because sometimes people have these high expectations when salesperson come on board because you're that salesperson, like, well, you're as good as me, right? And you're like, you have to let them fly a little bit, but you have to be very clear about expectations and make sure that job description exactly what they need and when they need it, and let them fly. A lot of times I see too many CEO entrepreneurs hover over them because you're expecting them to make these deals because you're paying them a lot of money, and unless it's all commission, but you got to have a little skin in the game there. And so that's the hard part behind all of it. To be honest with you, my guys too, we don't do a commission structure here at all. It is truly base salary, and then we do bonus per quarter, depending how the company does on a revenue basis. And we have a really nice 401k program. So I do that so that you don't have that fear of not having a job, or I have that basically as a team. Collaboration is one of my 4 core values. That's another thing. Make sure you have your core values, but don't have more than 7. But you want to make sure you have all that because people have to have a purpose. They have to say, why am I coming to work every day? Why am I here? What am I doing? How am I adding value? So all those different pieces. Somebody is ringing on my doorbell right now outside. But all good, so things like that to hang out there. But it just, the sales piece is really important. Don't be too egoistic about it. Okay, do it with the right person and all too, and give them room to fly. I always say give them at least 6 to 9 months to really show something. I know it's really hard to take because you're looking for money right away, but you got to give them space to breathe.
I'm going to switch the subject a little bit, go to some of the logistics about scaling a business. And Bernie, from an IT infrastructure, what is it when they're an entrepreneur, it's their self, it's their computer, and that's it. Could you talk a little bit about when a company scales to having, a contractor working with you or an employee working with you, and some of the things that they should be aware of from the logistical and an IT perspective, especially as it relates, especially these days, from cybersecurity and just protection of, our IP that the company might have?
Sure. So we see a lot of when people start their business, they go to Staples, Best Buy, buy a computer, or they had one, and it becomes their office computer, and it's fine for when they're starting out, and then they hire an employee or 1099, and now they need to start sharing data with each other, and that computer becomes more important. Their systems become multiple times more important. So to share data, as you start with the first one, and then you hire somebody in California. And so it's important to understand that there are several ways of doing sharing of data, or even the email, having your email, company email. But just from sharing the data, there isn't one solution that was going to fit for everybody. It's really based on your business. Are you under any compliance mandates? Are you working with HIPAA data? Are you working with PCI? You keep your people's credit cards. Are you doing financial? Are you a financial advisor? So all that comes into play, and there are solutions. But in our opinion, it's super important to work with somebody who can advise you on what you need for your business. We see a lot of people that don't know, and they're like, "Oh, my nephew told me to use this, and it works great." And yeah, it works, but you're probably violating a couple dozen rules or laws, and you don't even know about it. So I think that's important to, in everything, in HR, bookkeeping, hire the right people, hire people from the beginning. It's one of the things that we learned. We didn't have a bookkeeper. So, we were doing things, and then when we hired one, they came in and they're pulling their hair out because they're like, "What are you doing?" Right? So it took a while to straighten it out, and now we totally outsource what we don't know. And then from the IT part, also, as people grow, like even we go to networking events and somebody hands me a business card, a financial guy, and he has a Yahoo account or a Gmail account, right? Like all those free accounts are great because they're free, but as you grow from the marketing and from security point of view, you need to have you need to pay for a branded email account, right? I think it's so unprofessional to see a guy was trying to get investment money, and I'm like, you have a Yahoo account? I mean, for real? Like, you can't, right? On his business card. So there's several implications with the free accounts. Like Google is scanning those free accounts. We have a client who got in trouble because he had data on his account, and Google froze it, and it took him a year to get the data back, and he couldn't access his emails, couldn't access his documents. He was using the free stuff. So I think it's important to have the paid stuff, because you get what you pay for. From a security point of view, on the business accounts and business email, business data sharing, a good company can help you set up the security, set up the cybersecurity, so your accounts are protected even when you're not thinking about it, right? So our job in our company is to protect our guys' email. So if Alice is logging in from Philadelphia and her account is logging in from Texas, Microsoft doesn't care because the password is valid. Well, our tools will tell us, hey, Allison shouldn't be doing that. Impossible travel, it's called. And it's going to flag it, and we're going to lock the account down and figure out what's going on. So again, from a security point of view, outsource to a company that can help you set up those policies and procedures and have the tools in place to do that.
You actually bring up a very, very good point, which I've always followed. And I think any of us in the consulting area will be able to give this information to your clients as well, which is you do what you do best, whatever that is, right? That's the idea. You're doing IT, you're doing HR. Outsource the rest. You can't be good at everything, and things change so frequently. I told you, I'm a CPA, I'm an accountant. I don't do my own taxes because I don't enjoy it. That's not what I excel at. I outsource my IT. I outsource, and yes, I have a systems background, but I'm not the one who's going to be in there making sure that Microsoft is doing this, and this properly, and making sure all the scans are updated on my computers. So, for the HR, Marcia's an expert here in terms of HR. I don't know, and Tom, your benefits. So outsource that, because you cannot keep up with it when you're keeping up with everything that you're doing in your own area of expertise. So it's really important to do that. The other thing, and I'm going to bring up the budgets because that's been discussed a couple of times, is make sure you have a budget for this type of thing. Okay, make sure you have know what your spending is going to be. You should be looking at your financials. You should have somebody. Marcia's an accountant turned HR. All right. You should, as your own business, know what your margins are. You should know what your payroll expenses are. You should know what your monthly expenses are, and also what your monthly income is. And if there are going to be cash flow issues, know where that extra money is coming from so you can pay your people. All right. Budgets are important. Morris.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have another one that strikes me as sort of that letting go of control, right? Well, and I think that's big, because I think generally, if you are the kind of person who started your own business, you did it because you're the best, or you just confident or whatever. So that idea that you have to let go of control. And so the other system that I was thinking about here is something around potentially project management or project scheduling, access to calendaring, so that your team can see each other's calendars and share and that kind of thing. But even more than that, if three of us are working on a project, I've got to know what it is that you're doing, so that, how does it fit into the overall scheme of things? How do I go into the meeting with the client if I'm, kind of the executive relationship manager or whatever you want to call it, and sound intelligent when I'm not the one who's doing all the work? So I have worked with some of Marcia's people, and I know that they have staff meetings and they have conversations and those kinds of things on a regular basis. And having your core values and communication, or that kind of thing, being one of them, is crucial. But at the same time, is there a way that you might be able to get on the phone and be able to see and prepare yourself for a meeting in 5 minutes by looking through some of those kinds of documents. That seems to be another sort of background thing that you don't know you need it until you needed it yesterday.
And just to add to that, I mean, it's from our focus is cybersecurity. So when you bring up a phone, everybody can access all their data from a phone, from a tablet. How are you protecting those devices and your data? Are you thinking about it that, hey, I'm storing this in Dropbox? Oh, it's got to be secure, right? Well, is it? That somebody steals your laptop, can they get to your data? Can they take your hard drive out, plug it in, and get to your data? So it's, people really don't think about a lot of that stuff. And as Amy says, outsource it to somebody who thinks about it, who's sitting here all day trying to protect their clients, and it's so important today the data is everything, right? So your data, your client's data, especially if you're hosting your client's data, it's so important to protect it.
Well, and to your point, Bernie, again, from a systems perspective, having all the financial data, all the IP information, I mean, the employee documents that Marcia's clients all have, I mean, all of the data that we deal with has to be protected. And that's where Bernie's going to be doing a session. This is a plug to professional services. We're looking at either sometime soon, Bernie will talk more on cybersecurity. So keep that in mind. He is an expert on that. So that's good, especially nowadays. But it is, and Morris, you were talking about that is, the project management system, or those systems that give you an idea of where a project is, if that's what it is, or is it the day-to-day? How do you know what is going on? And then Morris also brought up the delegation. And Michael, we're going to get to your question, so thank you. The delegation, how many people here have issues with delegation?
Not anymore.
Yeah, you've got to be able to do that, if nothing else, because you're going to get sick one day, right? You're going to do something. You've got to be able to delegate so that you can move forward. One of the things I did when in corporate America was teach other people my job. So I worked myself out of a job so I could go to that next level. And I was never told, hey, you're still doing these other things that are so important. We have to keep you in that job, right? That was corporate America. Having our own companies, we don't have to do it that way, but it's been there. So always, always, always delegate to others those things that you don't like to do. I mentioned before, outsourcing what you don't do best. One of the first things I did with one of my business clients was I had them write what they do, what they love to do in their business on one column, and what they hate to do in the other column. And everything that they hated, we found somebody. Marcia, you said you hired somebody who was a right-hand person for you. All those things that you hate, delegate them to somebody else. They can do it. And because they don't hate it, they might do it better than you. Odd thought, but keep that in mind. I'm going to ask, oh, I like that, Marcia, let it go. Is anyone going to sing it?
Can you have coffee? I will.
Michael, okay, what kind of business planning did you do before starting? What kind of operating working capital did you have? Michael, that question was to Marcia or to Bernie or to Morris?
Anybody.
Okay, so when I started, this is a true story. I had gotten an $8,000, this is back in 2007, $8,000 bonus. And I took that bonus. I didn't have a ton of savings. I seriously did not. And I remember asking my husband, I said, hey, how do you feel if we lose the house? And he said, okay. And I was like, yeah, I don't think you really heard me, but okay, I'll take that as a yes. And so I went on vacation, read the book, The Alchemist, phenomenal book. And I came back, I told my boss I quit. And I took that $8,000 bonus and I said, well, like, how are you going to do this? I'm like, well, I have 6 months to take that bonus and make it money. And so what we did is how do you make the phone ring? You pick it up. And so I started making all my Rolodex. I had always like all those business cards. I kept thousands of them. And I started calling everybody on there and just say, you want to do coffee, want to do coffee, want to do coffee. I didn't have money for breakfast, lunch, and dinners, but I had money for coffee. So I would buy the gift card from Corner Bakery. I would actually, nowadays you buy them online, you can get it cheaper, believe it or not. And then what happens is every time I would meet somebody, I would pray to God that they pay for my coffee, but they most of the time didn't. And so I would just use that card to do all that. And so you had to make sure that happens. And then I got my first thing probably about 6 weeks into it, on my first client. And my brother-in-law, who, my husband's one of 5 boys, and they are all, they are not entrepreneurs at all. And he said to me, so you had clients before you got started? I said, I had 0 clients before I got started. I said, I didn't even have a contract written. And I said, I literally had nothing. I did Excel spreadsheets for accounting. I couldn't afford anything yet. And I said, everything was completely scratch. It's just one of the things you have to do for business planning is have a plan. And so I actually wrote down on my little whiteboard that revenue goal that I wanted for year 1. And I'm like, I'm going to hit that. I am going to hit that. That is my goal. You have to have a plan. Now, when you have that number, you can't just say, well, one day I'm going to get there. You have to break it down. You got 12 months. You got basically 52 weeks. You basically have 365 days. What per day do you have to do to get that? So for me, it was, I have to make so many calls a day to get a week, to get so many sales a month to hit that number. And what sale, how many hours was I having to bill to get to that number? You have to really think that way. Everything comes down to those numbers. And so that's basically my business plan. And now I use EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. I swear by that program for me and all too. But, operating working capital was that $8,000. And so I hear a lot of people that, max out on credit cards and stuff like that. I'm an accountant, guys. I don't like debt. I know a lot of my friends who leverage debt to the wazoo and they're very successful. God bless you. I like to sleep. And so I did not do that. So you have to make a conscientious decision on what you want to do. Just have the right people around you advising you. And you have such a great wealth of information with Beacon. Utilize them as much as possible, guys, because I didn't know what I didn't know. When I was an accountant, you think you know everything. I'm still learning. And it's been 16 years.
Bernie, what about you?
Financially, I had enough money. I had about a year to ramp up. So, that I had enough money that I thought could take me a year to even start getting clients. It took longer. And, when you're starting out, unless, I don't know, some of you guys might have gone to business school and have an MBA. I didn't. I was an IT guy. And I saw the need for IT for small businesses. I thought businesses needed what large companies had on a smaller scale. But not knowing anything about business, you start and I'm going to do IT for small businesses. But you don't know that half your time you got to spend on marketing. You don't know half your time you got to spend on coffee and getting to know people. And so I didn't know what I didn't know. But it took me a while to really realize that and then put the process in place, get a bookkeeper, get a payroll company when we hired people. In the beginning, I had Bank of America and they're like, oh, we can do payroll for you. And I'm like, okay, and it sounded great. It was cheap. But again, you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of people that I run into, we call them accidental entrepreneurs, right? They got forced into starting a business because they got laid off, or they figured they will do it because, hey, that's something they always want to do it, but they didn't have a plan. I had a bit of a plan. I didn't have a business plan. So it took a few years to really say, hey, I need to do this, and talking to people and learning. So again, the advice is, if you're in here in Beacon, you already know you're looking for people, you're looking for help, you're looking for people who are experts. So reach out to anybody here that will help you.
Morris.
I would add that it depends to who your client is. So in our organization, our clients need to be big companies, right? 2,000, 5,000, 100,000 employees. Generally, we're looking for a needle in a haystack, which is a lot different than if it's small or medium business. There's a lot more out there that you could talk to. So it's a little bit of, knowing who your client is will help you pinpoint your efforts. And I think that I don't know if it's harder to, it doesn't matter. Is it harder to meet the people in big companies because they've got so many people knocking on their door, or is it harder to meet the, small business person who's just so busy that they really can't talk to you? I don't know. But I do think that direction of who is your client and understanding that. And then I want to ask the crowd a question, because what I've seen is that over the whole COVID situation, and maybe it's a millennial, or what are they called now? Alphas. I don't know what the next generation. But the art of networking seems, it's not the art, it's more like the process or the activity of networking. I don't want to say it's died, but it's certainly kind of died back. It used to be that you'd go to meetings once a month and you'd get 50 people, 100 people at a meeting. You don't anymore, or people don't want to go to an in-person meeting. So can you do the let's meet for coffee? Will people answer the telephone? I don't know. I think that marketing piece, it does take effort. And, I think to Marcia's point, you got to get on the phone. But I don't know. I don't know what the new paradigm for sales and marketing is. But it's one of those things that if you really want to expand your business, you've got to crack that.
That's a very, very good point, which is why we had that one back in April, that session about marketing, because you're only going to grow your business if you have clients. You can add on all the people that you want, but if you don't have the revenue coming in, you can't afford those people. So you've got to always be working on marketing. Morris, I think you were talking about that, having the people who are working the project, having their ear on the ground or with their people kind of going, oh, there's another system over there that we can talk about. They should be aware of that, because if you've got an existing client, getting that increased revenue from an existing client is the cheapest way to bring in more revenue, because it's already an existing client. You don't have to worry about finding them. Do you have to do the contract? Absolutely. You've got all of that, but you're already a trusted advisor. So you've already passed a lot of those the rocks that are in your way of getting that business. If you just pick up the phone with somebody, and you've got to get through the relationship, you got to do all the contract, you got to do the money, you got to do all of that. But you've already got an existing relationship. So an existing client is the easiest way to scale your business. And again, they also, once they have you, they're going to refer you to potential other clients also. Not necessarily for, a specific job, but just to say, hey, I know this person. Why don't you talk to them about, just get to know them, because maybe there's something that's in 3 years. So.
Marcia, I know that you said, you don't necessarily have a formal commission. You're not paying the consultants a commission piece, but do you guys do sort of training or conversations around? Yeah. How do you do that with your non-sales team?
Yeah, so I can tell you one thing we did yesterday too, because obviously I'm sure all of you are feeling a little bit of a pinch of the economy of people not getting back to you, or sales are a little bit, I feel like we're like the buoy on top of the water right now. Like the past 2 years has been gravy, and now all of a sudden it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And so yesterday we had Innovation Day. And Innovation Day is basically when I have some people have extra hours, because we're billable. And when they have extra hours, I'm like, okay, we have a lot of people have extra hours this week. Let's make the most of it. And so we got them together, half in the office and half on Zoom, where we talked about literally about 2.5 hours of just ideas that they know, because they work with clients and they're working with the candidates, that things that we aren't doing that we probably should be doing. We came up with 50 ideas. And I was out there like, oh my God, these are great. And some of them I put like stars next to. I'm like, oh my God, this is a brilliant idea. And so now we're putting in these little committees to get this, talk just 5. 50 is great, but let's be real, that's not going to all happen. So let's focus on 5. and figure out, like, what really is going to make an impact, and what are our clients really needing, because it's definitely not as much recruiting as it used to be, and that's okay because they're talented in other areas. So you have to make sure that there's that. We also put together career planning as well, and so we have a new map on our system on SharePoint that shows them, like, if you are at this level, if you want to move to this level, these are the things you're going to have to do. Before, like, my age, we had to figure it out all themselves. Nowadays, that team wants to be like, okay, I come on board, this is my role, but what's next for me and how do I get there? So we put together that whole career pathing system for them. So it's been pretty cool rolling that out. The training and development is huge. And when you have downtime like we all have right now, get as much training and development as you can get done right now, because when it gets busy again, you're not going to have the time to do that. So you guys always be thinking like that. And that's what we do with our team to keep them motivated, to keep them energized, and we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun trivia. You'd be surprised. You send a message out saying, hey, what brings you happy? Send a picture of that today to the entire Teams chat. The pictures come in with all their families, their kids, their grandkids. It creates that vibe. It creates that energy. And because, the economy, you look at the news, it's all blah, 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 and you've got to keep your team motivated. And this hybrid stuff makes it twice as hard. So those are the things that we do.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going like, okay, an innovation day sounds like something that probably every company here could use, because taking the time out to do that and invest in your own company. And again, that goes back to when you're scaling a company, you've got to remember that. Because, if you've got 1-2 people, that's fine. But, what's the next? Tom, you're in benefits. So I wanted to bring up benefits because as you scale a business, if you have employees, if you have 1099s, they don't expect this. They're contractors. Their benefits are not part of their contract. But when you have employees, that's when the benefits become extremely important. So Tom, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but just wanted, because it is critical, and especially where, there was a whole, what was it called? Something quitting, fast quitting or whatever, where people were jumping ship a couple of months ago, just leaving just on the dime type of deal. And a lot of them were leaving because of better benefits for the various companies. So as small companies, because most of us are small companies, we're encouraged to, or we're scaling our businesses to be bigger. However, benefits cost money. So what are some of the benefits, especially nowadays? I mean, definitely there's healthcare. Well, I'll let you talk. And again, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but talk about some of the benefits that companies have nowadays that are encouraging that employees are looking for.
Yeah, and thanks, Amy. Healthcare is huge, but I think it depends on sometimes what types of employees you're looking for, right? So I fairly recently made the move to Birch, and I think I fall into that stereotypical category of a mid-30s-year-old father that now actually appreciates his benefits because I have children I have to look after. So the benefits were key for me when I was making the move. Now, if I was in my mid-late 20s, they wouldn't have been as essential. So it really gets into, again, what type of employees that you're looking to go after. Young people want different types of benefits, maybe different types of contributions in that strategy. Pet insurance is huge, something to offer. There's more pets now than I think ever at one point, but it's a low-cost benefit that younger people really value. Millennials, Gen Z, and as Morris alluded to earlier, alphas whenever they decide to get in the workforce. But yeah, so and then the older population, they are looking for ways to prep for retirement, and really adding a lot into that 401k is probably, obviously, if they're healthy, they don't have to worry about their health insurance as much and their health. But if that employee isn't, that's going to be one of the first things they look for over salary. So paying for those benefits, that it's really tough. Healthcare's really expensive, but there's ways to do it a little more effectively, but that's in a different type of conversation. But really just trying to figure out where the company strategy is, what type of people they want, and then for a shameless plug, we can try to help them figure out how to get the employees and the benefits strategy aligned with their business goals.
And one
And
thing,
you know what, too? Sorry. When you add do, and if you're thinking about benefits, guys, the sooner you think about them, the better. Because believe it or not, when you hit a certain size number, like 50 employees, you have to have benefits anyway. Okay. And if you have people listed as 30 hours to 40 hours, they're required to get benefits once you're available to do that. The sooner you put them basically on your income statement, okay, as an expense, and budget that part of your stuff, the better you're going to be. And you'll need to have 2 full-time employees, basically, and that doesn't include the owner, in order to get, the medical benefit plan and all. So you want to make sure you're really careful about that. You have to be very careful. I'm hearing people out there saying, hey, I'm going to give this person a stipend to pay for their stuff. I'm like, no. That's extra income. That's ordinary income coming into that person. They're going to have to pay taxes on it versus basically you paying for it and then having a medical deductions out of payroll. Very different tax classification. So be very careful how you say that. Make sure you talk to the experts that are here. But the benefits are huge, but you don't have to just go and break the bank. My rule of thumb in HR is you can always increase benefits. It's hard to take away benefits.
Yep. And again, there are different ways to Tom and Marcia's point is when you've got employees, what is it that you need? And I'm going to be a little bit selfish here. Also look at what you need as the owner. Okay. I've had health issues my entire life. Health insurance has been critical to me. Once I had those 2+ employees, then I was able to offer it. And I had somebody who worked for me and I didn't even know it. She had never had herself even on healthcare for 10 years because she didn't believe in it. And it's like, well, you're getting it now. So she finally went to the doctor last week for the first time in literally 10 years. And I'm like, you've got it. Anyway, long story is don't assume also that what you want is definitely what everybody else wants. Do a poll. And Marcia, I don't know if you've done this with your people, but find out what they want also, make sure you have vacation, paid time off, sick time, however that is done can be done. Marcia can help you with that part of it.
But have a handbook, have all that detail very
Yes.
clearly written on a handbook, guys, okay? Because if you have under 10 people, like, yeah, this person has 3 weeks, this person has, no. The bigger you become, the more complicated it becomes. That handbook is the first place an employment attorney will look to say if this person does sue you and stuff like that. You want to be consistent. You want to make sure it's clear. You can always add. And the biggest thing we did this year with pet insurance it was basically a voluntary benefit. So as an employer, I've paid nothing. My team loves it. I have 30 people signed up on it and they're paying for it, but they think it's the best thing ever. So things like that. And Tom and his team, actually it was Tom's team who recommended it. And so it was pretty exciting to see all that. So those are the things. So sorry.
No, and again, the retirements part of it. We've got, all of us are getting older and Social Security is probably not going to be there. So make sure you've got retirement of some sort, whether there are different ways to do it. I'm not the financial advisor here, but there are different ways to do that. So we are running out of time. I just wanted to have each of the panelists just do a quick summary of important things to look at when you scale a business, just as a parting shot.
Well, I go first since I introduced myself last, if that's all right.
Yep.
I think, sales is key. It's stupid, but it's just, if you don't have more business than you can do, then how do you grow your business? So strengthening that piece of it seems like, that's the, what do you call it? Party stakes, or that's the first step. I think also knowing who your clients are or should be, or you want, that's the key to getting more business. And that's the key to figuring out how do you then slot people in to do the work? I know in our sort of, in many of the folks here, what Michael does, it's complex. What Bernie does, it's, if you're looking at it big picture and you're trying to sell this ESOP, or, you're trying to sell the implementation of Oracle or whatever, that is a big complex project. Is there a way that you can segment that in order to figure out, I can't replace myself or clone myself, but hey, there's a real job here that I could segment out that I know I'm going to need again and again, especially because I know I have a pipeline of clients. And that's something that I could bring somebody in to do. I think that's the sort of, if you don't do this in a building block way, I've found that I keep bringing in people who are sort of more like me than more like the people who I could keep gainfully employed on a regular basis, because the project demands it. But that's not a way that you're going to grow your business. So do it in that, know who your client is, get your sales pipeline, and a way to really do that. And then know that position, not to say it's a lower whatever, but know that skill set that's needed that would really help you grow.
Thank you, Morris. Good food for thought. Now you can go enjoy your vacation.
Thank you. Buongiorno.
Bernie.
Yeah, so just to reinforce some of the things we said here, I think outsource what you don't know. Right? Don't assume that you can just Google an answer for anything. Find experts, especially on my IT side. It's important to have proper advice. Have a budget for it. Don't think you can get away with, plan on it. Like a computer, you got to replace every 5 years, right? Yeah. Can they last longer? Probably. Can you live without a computer for a week, with all your data gone because you didn't have a backup? So have a budget plan for it. And then ideally try to get use IT as a competitive advantage. Like try to figure out, if I implement something or I set something up now, it's going to help me grow, even though it might cost me a little bit up front now, but I'll have the tools in place so when I grow. So then you can use that as an advantage to your competitor who doesn't have it or is starting out. So those are my suggestions.
Thank you, Bernie. Marcia.
All right. They're all entrepreneurs. So you got to figure out what's your purpose. Do you want to be larger? Do you want to stay where you're at? Are you comfortable? If you're comfortable, there's no shame in that. Like, be comfortable and do what you're doing and get it moving out there. You get to figure out it is your life. It is your purpose. The larger you become, the more work it is. It is long hours. It is a lot more employee relations stuff. I have to do all that. I become more of a 25% a week coach to a lot of them because they just want to have me listen to them, which is hard for me sometimes because I like to build, I like to grow. So you have to figure out what you want to get and then when do you want to get it, and write that plan down about how many years and all. And once you start really writing these things down and having your vision board, it's a lot easier to achieve. You have all your resources right here, but it's really figuring out like what do you want to do and where do you want to go. And so once you really figure that out, it's a lot easier to say, hey, you know what? I'm really happy where I'm at right now. I'm good, but I'm definitely going to keep my network open, or I really want to grow. I mean, that was one thing for me. I said I had to make that conscious effort. I want to go bigger. So what does that mean? So I had to hang around people who were basically in growth mode and how they were doing and asking lots of questions. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I still make mistakes. But you learn from all of that. So use this group here to your advantage. Reach out to any one of us anytime and I'll to you. But you know what? Failure was not an option, and it's still not an option. And you really, the economy might suck, but if you mentally think that too, it's going to be crazy an energy from you that people will feel it. People buy trust. And if you believe in yourself and believe in your team, others will as well.
And on that, any other final comments from the...
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.